foremost, I appreciate everybody coming here and supporting this. This is an event that's, it's our second year doing this, so there's definitely a lot of trials and errors, but this is a good event for us, and I appreciate the support from the team and coming here and doing this. So we're going to leave the door open, so just in case people come in from having their lunch from the main conference room, they can come over here. So for those of y'all that don't know me, my name is Tim Reyna. I'm the CIO CTO for AFCEA International, and I have the distinct honor and pleasure to introduce today's speakers and panel. This session is something, like I mentioned, is something new to us, it's something special, and it's going to be presented in two parts. As you know, we were talking about earlier, it's going to be a venture capital panel moderated by Mr. Tien Wong, right here to my left. He's chairman and CEO of a company called Opus 8. While his bio speaks volumes, there's a few highlights that I'd like to highlight about him and just take a little bit. A lot of us do know Tien, but some things that we like to talk about him is a seasoned technology entrepreneur, CEO, and angel investor. So and he's a founder of Connectpreneur, a network of over 7,000 founders, CEO investors, and business leaders throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. Immediately following this panel, we'll move into our startups pitch competition. So today we have 7 innovative companies that will take stage and showcase their emerging technologies directly to our potential investors. We'll announce the winners later today on the main stage, so be sure to stick around and stay for that. And if you haven't already, make sure to swing by the company tables that we have in between here and the main conference room, and support them and thank them for being here. So thank you all. Tien, over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Tim, and it's a pleasure to be back here for the second year. Congratulations on another great conference. You guys are doing amazing work, and I want to congratulate our finalist companies who you guys will hear from momentarily, but we're going to do about an hour conversation with some of our top investors here in the region. We have about 40 minutes scheduled for conversation, followed by 20 minutes of audience Q&A. And as Tim said, there's a microphone right there. I'd like to kick things off by having each of our panelists do a 1 or 2 minute introduction about yourself, your organization. And yeah, why don't we start with Al?
Mike, okay? Got it. So, Tien, thanks for including me and AFCEA in the panel today. I am enthused to be here. Al Mink, combat pilot, the United States Air Force, 21 years, B-52s and other aircraft. So I'm very passionate about dual-use technologies that can help government and commercial world. That's me personally. Spend a lot of time running a large division of a defense contractor and then consulting high-tech companies. But what's most important to you, I would think, in the audience, is that I'm the managing director of a group of 125 early-stage investors, MIT alumni angels. And yes, they're all geeky alumni, but they're also all wealthy enough to make angel investments. So we do run this group. We have about 3 Shark Tanks a year, and then we have 2 information sessions in person a year as well. We have an extensive portfolio. We go across the life cycle from bringing companies in, down selecting them, having them pitch, do the due diligence, and then we work with them in our portfolio. So that's what we do. MIT alumni angels, early stage, high tech is what we're looking for. And fun fact about Al Mink, back to who is this guy? I love to bicycle. In fact, I qualified this year for the Air Force cycling team. That's a distance, not a speed one. So, and an avid supporter when AFCEA does Cycle for STEM. Right, Ben? Okay. Thank you, Skin.
I'm Ty McCoy with Iron Gate Venture Capital. We're a company that invests in early-stage national security dual-use companies, and we are able to invest in both funds. We're in 20 managers and 28 different funds and 38 direct investments, which we can make and do. We generally tend to follow and not lead. We're investors with, through that structure, about 420 companies. Our venture funds together have about 2.5 billion AUM. We're a lot smaller. We're a hybrid, so we do funds. So we're a fund of funds in one regard and a direct investor in the other. And we do seed through A rounds, some occasionally B rounds, occasionally a pre-seed investment. and we're generally oriented towards things that make planes and tanks and ships smarter, that are ISR and machine learning and quantum and AI and cyber and space. And we are finding a real interesting mix of technologies that are just, so rapidly speeding to fruition as we see in these various conflict zones around the world, and what people are working on in some of the adversary nations, which we try to follow very closely. My background is sort of related to buying technology when I was in the government for 25 years, including the White House and the NSC, and being involved in the Air Force as Assistant Secretary and Acting Secretary of the Air Force, and then at CIA for a while, and DIA and NSA and a bunch of other places. And then on the cell side, working for a large defense contractor involved in making solid rocket motors, Thiokol, where we developed and did a little dual-use work, taking that technology out of the lab and making the modern-day automobile airbag that everybody's driving around with, which turned out to be a pretty successful tech transfer, which we were very happy about, and then been doing some venture capital and other things since that time. So, Tien, thanks very much, AFCEA, for letting us join you today. I look forward to hearing questions and also hearing about the company, some of which we know about and think very highly of. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ty. Jennifer.
Tien, thanks for inviting me again this year. I'm Jen O'Daniel. I'm with Virginia Venture Partners. We're Virginia's pre-seed and seed stage investment fund. We're about 500 AUM. We've got about 335 companies in our portfolio. I run our tech practice, so cybersecurity, AI, and software. And I also run our feeder program Launch, which I probably will talk about later. And we also do life sciences and energy and aerospace and dual tech.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Perkins. Long time ago, I was a Foreign Service Officer with the Department of State. Also did a stint at the White House as a trade policy negotiator. We can talk about trade tariff policy later. That's not enough time for that right now. Subsequently worked for a number of IT services companies such as CACI, Serco, CGI, ICF. And so I guess this is my third career. I'm an operating partner with Blue Venture Investors. Blue Venture is a early to seed stage venture partnership focused on cyber, AI, B2B, digital health. Formed in 2010. So over the last 15 years have amassed about 80 portfolio companies, comprised of former business managers, operators, and so tend to take a seat on the board or some type of board participation with the idea that we can share our lessons learned, network, what we've learned from the School of Hard Knocks to help the founders grow their companies. We have 4 primary funding vehicles. We have a cyber and an innovation seed fund, with the innovation seed fund focused more on B2B, AI, digital health. Check sizes for those two are about $250K to $1 million. We have a third vehicle, which is the Blue Core Fund, check size about $1 to $3 million. And then we have a Blue Cyber Fund, which of course focused on cyber investments. That was started in 2021, 3 million plus checks. And we're actually about to start our Cyber Fund 2 this year. I guess one thing I want to highlight, 2 of our 80 portfolio companies, the 2 unicorn companies, were founded by veterans. And so the overcoming adversity, experience, grit that comes along with being a veteran, that counts a lot in our book. Look forward to answering any of the questions, hopefully sharing some useful info.
Thank you, Tom. And why don't we stick with you and work our way back? I want to kick things off by asking each of our panelists, how would you each characterize the current state of the early stage investment climate over the last 12 months especially? And in terms of deploying capital, are you deploying more or less or relatively the same? So maybe we can start with Tom and come back.
Yeah, initial thoughts, and happy to drill down if folks have specific questions. I think the consensus is everyone by now would have liked to have seen the kind of the flywheel being more active and just a ton of IPOs and other activity. We have kind of focused in on the companies that we're managing and have seen a fair number, probably 3 or 4 in the last several months have monetized or exited. So we're seeing activity. I saw one statistic where in the last 3 quarters, the funding has exceeded $90 billion for the quarter. So that's kind of a steady state of funding. This is VC market-wide. And the source, former GAO evaluator, so I got to quote my source. It was CB Insights. And so despite our wanting to see the flywheel be more active, there is that steady state of investment going on. I can drill down more into the particular areas we're looking at, such as cybersecurity. It remains super active until the hackers stop. There unfortunately is, and it's not steady state, it's an increasing trend of cyber attacks. I was at the RSA conference 2 months ago. It seems like it was 2 years ago, but just a massive, almost info overload of startups, ideas for anything from AI security to now we're hearing about deep fakes. I guess Secretary of State Rubio is only the most latest with someone imitating his voice, calling up some foreign ministry counterparts. And so a lot of stuff going on in the cyberspace. Can talk more to that. And on both sides, how can AI help with improved cybersecurity, but then the bad guys are obviously using it for deep fakes and other things too. So how is it going? Sustained state, and we're all kind of waiting for things for the flywheel to get more active.
Jen, how about yourself? What are you guys seeing?
Sure. So I feel like we're spending a lot of time doing follow-on investments in existing portfolio companies. I would say that I'm seeing less activity on the angel side, and when I say the angel side, I mean not angel groups, but like individual angels. And I think that's because there have been less, at least here, as it appears, at least less exits and less growth in sort of existing portfolio companies for some. I would say that we see a lot of AI, and I would say we see a lot of they're not really AI companies. Everyone's adding AI to their company. And so that's been interesting. I think that's losing sort of its appeal to people to see everything is AI added to it. Still see a lot of cybersecurity given where we're located. But again, spending a lot of time looking at existing portfolio companies.
And are you deploying more, less, or about the same as last year?
I think about the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Just bigger
Just to your
checks.
existing portfolio.
Just mostly to our
more than-
existing, or we're just writing bigger checks.
How about you, Ty? What's Irongate seeing out there?
Tan, we're saying that there's some good companies that are coming along that are showing that they can do something that is better than some of the current companies we have and some of the current companies that are out there, but maybe not as much better as you would hope. So the question becomes, is it 50% better? Do you make an investment, or does it need to be 3 times better? And so there's a risk, of course, with too big a jump, but then there's a risk with investing for some more marginal gain or marginal improvement, because that marginal improvement might, in 6 months or a year, be bypassed by a great leap in technology, or a leap in the doctrine or the concept of operations for how certain technology is used, whether it's mines or drones or some using AI that's mixed in with cyber. And so it's a little bit of an unsettled time as to how some of these technologies that are rapidly evolving, how they're going to play out to make some things a little not obsolete, but less effective. And so some of the companies may find that, including some we've invested in, as well as others that are coming along, that there's some things that were not anticipated that really put the business model or the success of the solution in some question. And not that companies can't recognize that, and some can pivot the way many companies do and have, sometimes 2 or 3 times before they're successful. But then that means you really need to have maybe a more seasoned team to be prepared for the pivot, not only the CEO, but maybe the technical team. Are they broad enough to pivot? Are they really very narrow with respect to the solution that they have, which may not be enough of a leap ahead? So a lot of those kind of things are very hard to, pin down and calculate.
So overall, are you guys flat, would you say, in terms of deployment, or?
I'd say yes, we're flat. We're raising money in our Fund 2 and trying to deploy at the same time. We have some that we think are worth investing in, some companies that we're seeing. For sure, we'd like to have more money. We would put it to work. We'd feel confident in putting it to work. But we know that we have to be kind of careful, because there's good things coming that we don't see that we have to be prepared for also.
Al, how about you on the angel side? What are you guys deploying more capital, less capital? What are you seeing in the market?
Yeah, so what's the environment? Just as a reminder, we're early stage because we're angel investors. So we are the investors sometimes before you'll see Tim or Jen's support, or even Ty sometimes. So very early stage, kind of at the very beginning of a life cycle of a company, and that matters. So 2 trends. One trend, kind of on the economic side, is that there's been fewer exits, way like in the stock market, right? Strategic buyouts at the end, so investors aren't getting their money back. So the VCs and other funds are closing in a little bit, so now the angels are holding the bag longer. And it's like any other investment you might make, like in a house. How much money does it cost? How long do you hold it? What's the rate of return? And if it's longer for you to get your money back, it's less of a good deal. Plus, you don't have your cash to reinvest. So that's one economic trend, that plus interest rates being up, right? There's a good alternative. Another trend is the recent changes in tax rates. Okay, I'm not going political, please. I'm not going political, but there's been some changes now for the investors that are positive, and some things that reduce the timeline, like restructuring the FDA approval process, that are positive. So it's a mixed bag on that. Overall, our deployment, we make individual decisions, not fund decisions, because we're angel investors. So each angel votes, so you get really good data. Our take is down a bit, but I will tell you the quality is going up. And the other cool thing is the angels are spending more time on the back end due diligence prior to their investment. So our success rate that we see as indicators is up as well.
Speaking of due diligence, how are the MIT alumni angels evaluating pre-revenue companies, or companies that might have gotten funding 3 years ago when the market was hot, and are maybe when the market has pulled back, the criteria has tightened? So are you guys looking at things a little differently? I know Ty had mentioned that he's looking at the business, the managers. I mean, what are you guys looking at the sort of pre-seed and seed level?
Okay. Some of you out here, just quick hands, how many actually have done investment in real estate? Okay, so the same things you're thinking with real estate, we think, and a big thing is the price. So a lot of the companies still have talked to their buddies or predecessors, and they're sticking with their old prices. For an angel investor, it's hard to figure out a valuation of a company, right? It's pretty easy for a piece of property, actually. But if you had a piece of swampland, it's a lot harder to figure out how much money that's going to make, right? A lot of unknowns. So we're like the swampland versus the full built house that you're buying. So because of that, we use something called usually a simple agreement for future equity, a SAFE. Well, what it is it allows you to make an investment, and the price of the company is going to be the price that someone further down the line, right, VC A or B round that comes after angel funds, pays for the company with some type of discount because we got in early. Usually it's about 20%. So because of that, right, we're not too caught up in the whole valuation stuff. You know, unless there's a way to put a max price, like for a house you're buying a max price, and if their max price is too high, then we'll relook at it.
Right.
So, different vehicle, a safe, and startups know what that is.
Right. Jen, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so because we've seen less individual angels write checks, right, to get them ready for when I might write a seed stage check, we took a program VIPC was doing, and we relaunched it to a program called Launch about a quarter ago that I manage, and it's sort of a feeder fund into our fund. So it's got a small grant. So all of your pre-MVP, pre-revenue, at least pre-product revenue companies, we've got this $50K grant, gets you sort of in our pipeline of things we're going to start looking at, a quarterly check-in, to see how it's going. It doesn't need it needs like an in-kind match, right? So like, I guess you're, not taking salary, right? To sort of like get that early feeder, start monitoring things. And then I've got the next stage up from that, I've got a $150K convertible note that is like super entrepreneurship friendly. There's no cap on that note. It's got a 20% discount. It's in like most of your nation language, meant to sort of sit alongside anything. It requires like a 2-to-1 match. So I'm looking for you to find like angel investors. So I hope to encourage angel investors to come in with us. Again, super early, looking at sort of like 300K to 750K round. To sort of get something in there, again, start monitoring, start meeting with, start helping them get ready to go out and pitch other investors. Sometimes an angel group will come in with us for that, but it is typically just individual angels. So we're trying to prime the pump that way because, again, less people writing checks, and that is definitely due to the stock market, but it's also due to like the overinflated prices that we saw a couple years ago in companies, and in sort of a lot of companies that should never have gotten funded got funded. And so the market's got to make up for all of those things. So we tried to come in a little bit earlier with things, not in a traditional fund, to try to get us moving again.
Hey, Tom, on Blue, you guys have 80 companies, and I know a lot of them were funded 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago. You've probably had some down rounds, I assume. How are you guys looking at follow-ons in that kind of a context?
There's a lot of activity, whether subsequent rounds, convertible notes, additional bridge funding. In the absence of what I'd referenced earlier, the flywheel kicking off of more, if not IPOs, much more frequent acquisitions. There is a lot of turning to bridge rounds to grow to the next stage, and so it's been fairly active. There have been exits as well. Companies have been acquired, and I think the key is to, instead of getting caught up in these macro, in fact, look at each of the companies, and there are interested buyers looking at motivated sellers, and if the company is ready to exit, trying to match up the factors that enables that. In the meantime, if they're not quite ready, there are, as I said, bridge, subsequent. There are companies. Just one example. There was one that received an offer this past week for 40 mil acquired, but no, the founder wants to grow more. So thanks, but no thanks. And so there's a lot of activity of that sort going on as well, not just down rounds.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. I have another. We're going to open up to the audience. By the way, we have a microphone right here, so think about questions you might want to ask the panel. We'll open it up in about 10 minutes or 5 minutes or so. I have another question. We have founders in the room. We have people that are looking to raise capital. Al, you see a ton of early stage, pre-seed, seed level. We've heard, Jen's doing follow-on rounds, not a whole lot of new, although she does do some new investments. But what are you telling founders that can't get funding from you guys? What kind of advice are you giving them in terms of whatever advice, positioning, narrative, other alternative sources of money, maybe like crowdfunding or, non-dilutive grants or non-dilutive contracts from the government. What kind of advice are you giving? I'd love to ask all of you, but we'll start with Al.
Be careful of offering advice. So last round, we had 65 applicants. We screened that down to 12 finalists, and then we selected 4 to pitch. 2 got investment. So if you look at 63 firms and you're willing to be an advisor for each of them and answer questions unpaid, right, you can see where this would go. So instead of saying what do I actually tell them, a few of them that I have relationships with, I'll spend some time if they didn't make the cut. But what I usually do is tell them why they didn't make the cut. It's not so much strategic. If I'm on their board of advisors, it's a different thing. Or if they're in our portfolio, it's a benefit of being in our portfolio and being accepted. But I'm happy to talk. I tell you what, I don't want to take over the microphone, Tian, but if you do have a discussion about alternative sources of funding, strategic partnerships, anything like that, I'm happy to add to the conversation. But I now defer to my colleagues.
Got it. Ty, what about you? What kind of advice are you giving to the people that you're tracking and not ready to write checks for?
A lot of times we'll just say, if we don't have the money or we have other people in the queue in front, we just say, the timing is not quite right for us. We have other commitments. Then we may refer them to one of the other funds that we're investors in, or another group that we're not invested in, or a corporate venture capital firm. Or if we say, their product is not competitive or the landscape's changing too fast, we'll just say that's our honest opinion. We'll tell them that. If it's not our sector, we'll tell them that, and just try to give them some feedback as to where they might go and where they are, or where we think the market is going. We generally don't criticize the experience of management too much or anything like that. We just let the nature take its course on that. They have to draw that conclusion depending on how many times they've been somewhere and been turned down. So we just try to be helpful.
So
Thank you.
I'm going to do a quick. What he said is, we don't tell them the baby's ugly. All right? Because when you do that, then they defend themselves why it's not really ugly. So you generally don't do that. It's like, yeah, it was good. There were just some others that fit better. So that's what I took from Ty's. That's important. It's really hard to get feedback from investors that's actionable.
Although Jen is an expert at giving feedback, so
Oh, man.
you are. I've seen you in action for 16 years, I guess, right? So
Probably more than that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
look, so a couple of things. I would say that, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we've got a couple of feeder programs going on, right? A grant, it's open right now. If you're interested, $50K, it closes at the end of the month. We process it for the month of August, so we get to a really quick no, in 72 hours. And then at the end of August, we make some decisions. We usually grant about 20% of the companies. I try to give people really specific feedback around, not in what's wrong with their company, why it's not going to succeed. For those, I tend to give we don't feel like you spent enough time talking about your market, or maybe you don't fully understand it, and if you do, you didn't explain it very well. We try to give feedback like that. I say, unfortunately, in the nature of the business, right, I say no more than I say yes, obviously. And I say no often, constantly, every day, many times. I probably see, 1,000 companies a year. I'm probably between a grant, a convertible note, a pre-seed investment, a seed investment, I'm probably saying yes, 25 times, which is probably really high compared to the other people at this table. But so I say no a lot. A program I like in Virginia is ICAP, to do some of like the customer discovery work, get a mentor that's paid but not paid by you, which is pretty interesting. I think another program I like, there's a venture studio called Red Cell. So if you're not super far along and you're in sort of a dual tech or cybersecurity or healthcare space, kind of an interesting model to look at. But I try to be helpful, but at the same time, I also try not to invite back the people coming back to argue with me of why I'm wrong. There's not enough hours in the day, honestly. But I try to be helpful. I try to refer to other places they might find some help and resources.
Great. Tom, how about you? What kind of advice do you have for founders? And again, a reminder, if you have questions, I'll let Tom have the last word. Come on up to the mic, and we'll start right after Tom. Go for it.
It's not necessarily always that, the baby's not beautiful. Baby may be very beautiful, but the timing is off. If you've expended all your funds and the timing is just not working out right, and I guess the point is you're starting a dialogue, continue that dialogue so that when the timing does align, there is a potential investment there. The second thing I'd mention is, there's a pretty substantial ecosystem, kind of Venn diagram with different folks working with different partnerships. So if that particular venture group if it may not pan out immediately, hey, connect up with the other folks within your network. And the third thing I would mention, in parallel with the fundraising, all of the non-dilutive opportunities, which are especially plentiful around the DMV, we help our portfolio companies that may not be as familiar how to pursue them, whether it's DARPA, DoD, SBR, et cetera. And there are companies that are going, private sector, public, private, and can bring experience helping them get into that new market segment.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for our great panel. Thank you.